everyone, I'm Jen. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. I'm here to do like a bit of a, I don't know, like an update, a little bit of a October wrap up because I did not read a lot last month. I think, what did we get? I got through 5 books, and I will get to all of that in a moment, but let's just chat for a second. I don't know if you noticed. It may look like some things have changed behind me, and yes, they have, but I also recently took I don't know, I got a little frisky and wanted to move some things around in our house and decided that my bookshelves should move as well. So I am actually in a completely different room with a completely different setup. I've moved some of my other books around as well. I've moved some books off my shelves and added some more books to my panGoBook's account. So I have about, I don't know, at least 3, I think more, shelves that are completely open and bare. But I have, like I said, I've moved some other books to a different location just to give myself a little extra room as well anyway. But yeah, so that is it. So I'm in a different room. So it might take me a minute to kind of figure out lighting as well. So bear with me there. But that's that update. That was actually really interesting. It was supposed to be, it was really supposed to be me moving my workstation, which then turned into me really rearranging 2 full rooms in our house. And I'm actually really happy with the way that it turned out. I get a little bit more natural light. I have my ring light if I need it. And I was able to bring in my second one of these shelves that was in a different part of a different room, like I mentioned. And I still have some extra room over here as well for an additional bookshelf if need be. So yeah, that is my long-winded spiel about that. I do want to also mention, so like I've mentioned that I might maybe be in the slump, or I don't know what's going on, this bump the last couple of months, and I think I actually realized, or if I'm being honest with myself, fessed up to what it actually was, and it is just pure and simple stress. It is just stress. I have been under a lot of stress the last few months, and I think that just caught up with me. As much as I want to read, every time I would try to pick up a book, my brain would just not shut off. And typically when I read, that is my time to just, let everything go, get lost into a completely different world and just really be lost, like just escape from reality for a little bit. But I was really struggling being able to do that every single time I would pick up a book. If it wasn't completely grasping me right away, even if it was really good, I just the brain wouldn't shut off. So even if I was just really in the mood to read a great book and kept seeing all these books that I wanted to read and just whatever it would, I literally couldn't. So that's pure and simple what it is, stress. I'm sure that you know what stress feels like, but that is, it's been really stressful the last few months. I'm still very stressed, but I'm trying to do other things to help myself relieve that stress. And that also correlates with filming as well. As much as I wanted to get on and talk about books, I wasn't reading anything. And then I was just also really in those feels of, I just didn't feel good enough to start the camera and start filming. And it wasn't that I didn't want to film, because I actually did want to film, but I didn't have it in me. I just didn't have it in me. But I'm trying here. But ultimately, I really enjoy this channel. I really enjoy connecting with everybody. And even if I'm not reading a lot of books, I still am reading. And I still have things that I want to say, and I still want to talk about certain things. So that aside, this long, just drawn out thing, life update, whatever, is just to say, I'm sorry that I've been a little MIA lately. It is, it is just a part of life, and it's obviously not something that I anticipated, but when you do have a lot of stress, sometimes it's hard to wade through that. So something kind of had to give. And unfortunately, it was my favorite thing in the world, which is to read, and in turn, this channel. So I apologize for being a little MIA. I'm not saying that I am completely back, because I am still deep in the stress of it all, but I'm trying, and I will attempt to be more present. I really haven't even been present on Instagram. It's just the stress, man. But I don't want to bum anybody out, so let's get into some of the books that I read in October, shall we? As I mentioned, I only read 5 books. I was really excited for October, because this was going to pull me out of that fabricated slump that I told you about, not like letting my brain really understand what that actually was, because I was going to reread and then finish reading the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. And I almost succeeded. When I first started reading this series back in 2018, 2019, I can't remember. It's been a few years. I actually was listening to the books, and I got through 1 and 2, which is Corrupt and Hideaway, and I never finished it. So I was really excited for October to come around, because I was just going to dive right back in and read all 4 of them. And I knew that I was at least going to get through 3, because Kill Switch was the buddy read for October. I'm going to leave that link up in a card and down below for you as well, because it was a good one. And I did really good. I almost made it, but we will get to that. So we started off with the first book, Corrupt. Now, this is the start of Devil's Night. It gives us the introduction to our 4 horsemen, Michael, Kai, Damon, and Will, and gives us a little bit of an insight into them. But it is mainly about Michael and Rika. They have this very tumultuous relationship. She is dating his younger brother. He's always intrigued Rika, but also scares her a little bit. And one Devil's Night, which is the night before Halloween, she goes on an adventure with them, and that's basically how this starts. 5 stars. It was just as good, if not better, than the first time that I read it. And FYI, I decided to read the books this time. Then we move into Hideaway, which is Kai and Banks' story. I'm going to be honest, this one, I feel like I forgot a little bit of the key components of this one. This one wasn't my favorite of the 4. Banks has a really hard life, but there were some aspects of her that like irritated me a little bit, but I also kind of found her and Kai a little boring. I know, at times. Like, I still really overall enjoyed the story, but I found myself wanting like more of their backstory. Anything that had Banks and Damon in it, or anything that brought us back to like Michael and Rika, or something, anything that had the over outlining story, what was happening in the outer parts of the story, a little bit more than Banks and Kai, but I still really enjoyed it. I think I ended up giving this one either like a 4 or a 4.5. And then we move into Kill Switch. Now, this was our buddy read for October, and I will, like I said, link the live show. So I'm not going to go into too much of this, but I'm just going to say, like, I think most people say this, but this one obviously was my favorite. I love how Penelope Douglas can take a character that you kind of have a little iffy feelings toward him in the first one, in Corrupt, and you're just like, this dude's like a little bit of an asshole, like he's teetering on the edge. And then towards the end of Corrupt, you're like, dude, you are a grade A asshole. Like, what is wrong with you? And then in Hideaway, you are just full blown, what an asshole. Somebody needs to find him and put him out of his misery, because he's just going to erupt and it's not going to be good, to absolutely falling in love with him, which of course you know is going to happen when you start this book, but it's just how are you going to take what we found out in Corrupt and Hideaway, and how are you going to make me fall in love with this person? Like, how? And Penelope Douglas just has a way about them that the way that they weave a story, that any story, Winter and Damon, just dynamite. Their chemistry, palpable. I mean, you could feel everything. And the fact that you have a heroine who is blind, and the way that Damon navigates that. It was just it was so good. It was definitely my favorite, definitely a 5 for me. And then we get into the last book, which is Nightfall. Now, I do know that there are 2 novellas that are in the middle of Hideaway and Kill Switch, and then in between Kill Switch and the last book, which is Nightfall. I thought that I was going to read them, but ultimately decided not to because it was taking a little bit longer. I did read these books, so it does take a little bit longer than when you're listening to it, and they progressively get bigger. And Nightfall is a pretty chunky book, so I decided after Kill Switch I was going to take a little bit of a break and read a shorter book, and then get into Nightfall because it was pretty big. And I also decided after talking to the girls during the live show that I was going to go back to my roots and listen to this book on audio. But like I said, I wanted to take a break and read something in the middle of that. In hindsight, I wish I would have just rolled right into it because I haven't even started Nightfall, which I know I am like a little irritated with myself that I didn't get through it in October. But I have purchased it on Audible, and it's definitely something that I want to get to this month. But as my, I don't want to say palate cleanser, but as my like segue into just taking a break from the Devil's Night series, I decided to read a short book, and it was short. I decided to read Satan's Affair by H.D. Carlton. This is the prequel to the Cat and Mouse duet, and it follows Sibby, who honestly is like one of my favorite characters. I think she made Hunting Adeline for me. It was such a dark book, even though she a twisted bitch. She was a bit of a comic relief in a really, really dark book. Let me be honest with you here. So, again, it's a short book, and it took me a minute to get into this because I was a little bit bored in the beginning. I was waiting like it's not a big book, so let's just get into the meat of the story. I want a little bit of a backstory with her. I know that Sibby is getting her own book, and I'm really, really excited about that. And I know that we'll get like more of a deep dive into her past life before she met Addie and Zaid. But I don't know, it was just a little slow going at first. And so ultimately it took me way longer than it should have to finish this book. But once a certain point hit, it very much took off, and then it was over, and I was like, okay, see, now I want more. And I hate to say that there was like a certain point when it happened, because ultimately it was when she met Zaid that it really took off. And it's not because Zaid entered the picture, it's just because like the story took off at that point. But the interaction that we saw between her and Zaid, in Zaid's point of view, now we get it in Sibby's point of view. Like, that was just a little bit more comical. Like, that is what I was looking for in this book, and so we definitely got it. Yeah, that's a roundabout way of me saying it was good. I really enjoyed it. She crazy. I also really was intrigued with these henchmen. Obviously, I don't want to say too much. I mean, I know like a lot of people have read the Cat and Mouse duet, so you kind of know. I mean, you know, if you know, you know. But for people who have not read the Cat and Mouse duet or Satan's Affair, I don't want to tell too much, but I was really intrigued by these henchmen and her descriptions of them, and then ultimately what we find out. Although I do wish that I would have just stayed with the Devil's Night series and finished off Will's story with Nightfall, I am glad that I did read this. By the end, I definitely wanted more of Sibby, but it did take me a minute to get into it, and for that reason, I gave it a 3.5. Moving on to my last book of the month, my plan was to read Satan's Affair, get a little palate cleanse, if you will, and then move right back into the Devil's Night series and finish it with Nightfall. That was the plan, but then I got an email that I had an arc waiting for me, and my plans were derailed. I completely forgot that I had signed up for this arc, but was really excited when I opened up my inbox and saw that I got Julie Ann's newest release because of her. So, of course, I had to put Nightfall on hold yet again and read because of her. Now, this is part of the Jack and Jill world that she has. I have not read the synopsis or the blurbs of the other books, but I believe it is a trilogy, and then there are a couple like interconnected books or books that go along with the trilogy for other characters. Now, remember, I say that I have not read the blurbs of the other books, so things that I'm saying right now are just an educated guess from reading because of her. I did not read the Jack and Jill series. Julie Ann is a new-ish author. I found her last year and quickly fell in love with her writing. I also fell in love with her as a writer because she, unlike a lot of authors that I have read, especially in the past, who follow a formula of sorts, I feel Julie Ann does not do that. Every time I read one of her books, I am constantly surprised. I think I know where a book is going, and it definitely does not go that way. It just absolutely completely takes me by surprise, and I love that about her. And this was no exception. I love the fact that our main characters were older. I believe Frankie is like 41, and Jack is like in his 50s. In romance, we typically see more of like that age gap, taboo, coming of age, secretive thing. So it was nice to see these matured characters. Okay, but let's get into the story. This is promoted as a standalone of the Jack and Jill world, as I mentioned. In my very humble opinion, I feel like I missed a bunch because I didn't read the previous books. I do know from even reading the dedication or the acknowledgments from Julianne that people have been begging for Jack's story, and that's who we're getting, Jackson's story. Our main heroine, Frankie, is definitely a new character. So anything with her point of view, I knew that I was getting for the first time. But as far as Jackson goes and his storyline, I feel like I would have understood a lot more had I read, especially when it comes to his family, his sister. I feel like I would have enjoyed the book even more had I had a little bit more context to go off of. So, in my opinion, if you have not read the Jack and Jill series, I would maybe hold off on Because of Her and read the trilogy and then the book that comes after, which I don't know if it's a prequel or what, but I know that there's at least 4 books. I would read those and get a good sense of where you're at before you jump into this. And it could just be me, but like sometimes I just felt lost. Anyway, I really enjoyed the story. I felt like there's this beautiful underlying tone of these two people who should have never met, who have this inexplicable connection. He tries to fight it. He tries to get her to go away. He doesn't. He's on a mission. Like tunnel vision, I am on a mission. I am almost finished, and then I can get on with my life. And this crazy person, this absolute hurricane just stumbles into my life and just throws out the trajectory of where I'm supposed to be going. But their connection is really fun. Like she basically inserts herself into his life, even though he adamantly tells her, like, go the F away. Like, I don't want you. They are drawn to each other. They have this connection. They have these similar interests. And then their lives kind of commingle in a different way. She comes to the small town to settle the effects of her family. And she comes across this very disturbing letter that was written to her nephew that changes her path, sets her on a path for revenge. And that collides with Jackson's path. And it is just a crazy ride. I just love the little moments between Jackson and Frankie, the way she pushed him to be in his life, the way she wasn't taking no for an answer. She's just like, I'm here, you're here. I mean, let's have a little bit of fun while we're in town. Again, I do feel that I would have liked this more had I read Jack and Jill trilogy or books. Was I lost throughout the book? No. Julianne does an amazing job. I was not lost, but I felt like I was missing out, if that makes sense. Ultimately, I ended up giving this a 4. Really recommend this book, but go read Jack and Jill first, then come back to this book. And that is it. Those are the books that I read in October. I'm not going to do my little wrap up thing for the month because, like, what is the point? I only read 5 books for October, but I read quality books. So there is that. I'm also not going to put out a separate November TBR because, again, what is the point? I didn't read a lot the last few months, so me putting a really long list is just, it's not going to help me. But I will say this. So I was thinking about a TBR, and honestly, what I feel like I want to do is tackle new releases or newer releases that are on my shelf or I've been eyeing or have just recently come out that I just haven't gotten to. I'm just going to give myself free reign to choose from any of those. I think that's it. I think this is going to be a longer video than I had anticipated. It was supposed to be a short video because 5 books, but I also didn't want to have to record a completely separate video for me telling you that there wasn't going to be a November TBR and give you a little bit of an update of like where the hell I've been. So I just put it all into one video, and I hope that is okay with you. I hope you guys are all doing well and you're reading fabulous things. I'm a little bit envious. Tell me what you've been reading, what you've been enjoying, or just tell me something good down in the comments below, and I will catch you guys next time. Before you leave, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video. Happy reading. Bye.